The church bells were ringing when Marcus first felt it. That inexplicable chill that runs down your spine when you know something is about to go terribly wrong. He stood at the altar in his perfectly tailored charcoal suit, hands clasped in front of him, watching as guests filed into the small chapel. The afternoon sun filtered through stained glass windows, casting kaleidoscopic patterns across the wooden pews. Everything was perfect, almost too perfect. His bride-to-be, Vanessa, was somewhere in the back room, probably having her veil adjusted for the 100th time by her bridesmaids. They'd been planning this day for 18 months, down to the smallest detail. White roses instead of red, a string quartet instead of an organ, vintage champagne for the toast. Vanessa had organized everything with military precision, and Marcus had been happy to let her take the lead. He was a software engineer, more comfortable with code than wedding decisions. She was an event planner, this was her domain. The guests continued to arrive. His college roommate, Dave, gave him a thumbs up from the third row. His mother dabbed at her eyes with a tissue even though the ceremony hadn't started. His younger sister, Alicia, was already recording everything on her phone, probably for one of those wedding montage videos she loved making. Then the ushers opened the doors wider, and a woman in a navy blue dress stepped inside. Marcus's heart stopped. It was Emma, his ex-E-X, the woman he'd dated for 6 years before things fell apart in spectacular fashion 3 years ago. The woman he'd been certain he'd never see again. And she was walking down the aisle, being guided by one of the ushers to a seat in the front row. The front row, as if she were family. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. His best man, Jordan, noticed immediately. "Hey, you okay, man? You look like you've seen a ghost," Jordan whispered, gripping Marcus's elbow. "She's here," Marcus managed to choke out. "Emma's here." Jordan's eyes widened as he followed Marcus's gaze. "What? Why would Vanessa invite your ex to your wedding?" "She didn't," Marcus said, his voice tight. "She doesn't even know about Emma. I never told her." That was a lie he'd been carrying for the entire relationship. Vanessa had asked about his past relationships early on, but Marcus had been vague, dismissive. "Nothing serious," he'd said. "Just some dating here and there." He'd convinced himself it didn't matter. Emma was ancient history. Why dredge up painful memories? But now Emma was sitting in the front row, smoothing her dress, her dark hair cascading over her shoulders just like he remembered. She looked up, and their eyes met across the expanse of the chapel. She smiled. Not warmly, not coldly, just knowingly. Marcus felt his legs go weak. "I need to stop this," he muttered. "What? Marcus, what are you talking about?" Jordan hissed. But Marcus was already moving, stepping down from the altar. The string quartet faltered, the violinist looking up in confusion. Guests began to whisper, heads turning. "Marcus!" Jordan called after him, but Marcus didn't stop. He walked straight down the aisle toward Emma. With each step, memories flooded back. Their first date at that Italian restaurant where they'd closed down the place talking until midnight. The apartment they'd shared in Boston, where they'd stayed up late playing board games and arguing about whose turn it was to do the dishes. The trips they'd taken, Iceland, Japan, Morocco. The way she'd laugh at his terrible jokes and call him on his nonsense when he was being stubborn. And then the end. The terrible, ugly end. Emma stood as he approached, her expression unreadable. "Before we continue, pause and tell me in the comments. What country or city are you watching from? Do you think Marcus is doing the right thing by stopping the wedding? Hit that like button if you're hooked. What are you doing here?" Marcus asked, his voice low enough that only the nearest guests could hear. "We need to talk," Emma said simply, "before you make a huge mistake. How did you even know about this wedding?" "Your sister told me," Emma said, glancing briefly at Alicia, who had lowered her phone and was watching with wide eyes. "She thought I should know." Marcus spun around to look at Alicia. She gave him an apologetic shrug. The chapel had gone completely silent now. Everyone was staring. Marcus could feel dozens of eyes boring into his back. "You have 30 seconds to explain what you're doing here before I have you escorted out," Marcus said, trying to sound authoritative but failing. Emma reached into her small clutch and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't important. Life or death important. She held out the paper. Read this, please. Marcus hesitated, then took the paper. He unfolded it, expecting. What? A love letter? A confession? Some desperate plea to take her back? Instead, it was a medical report. He scanned the text, his brow furrowing. Patient. Vanessa Marie Hartford. Diagnosis. Factitious disorder. Recommendation. Continued psychiatric treatment and monitoring. Marcus looked up at Emma. Confusion written across his face. What is this? What are you talking about? Vanessa is sick, Marcus. Not physically, psychologically. I found this 3 weeks ago when I was doing research for a story. A story? What story? Emma, you're not making any sense. Emma took a deep breath. After we broke up, I became an investigative journalist. I've been working on a piece about medical fraud for the past 8 months. Vanessa's name came up in my research. She's filed claims for treatments she never received, conditions she never had. She's been scamming insurance companies for years. Marcus shook his head. No, Vanessa works in event planning. She's not. She wouldn't. Event planning is what she tells people, Emma interrupted. But that's not where most of her money comes from. Marcus, I've seen the documents. Bank statements, medical records, testimony from doctors who've caught her faking symptoms. She's been investigated by 3 different insurance companies. The chapel doors burst open, and Vanessa appeared in her wedding dress, her face flushed with anger. What is going on out here? She demanded, marching down the aisle with her bridesmaids scrambling behind her. Marcus, why aren't you at the altar? And who is? She stopped dead when she saw Emma. Who the hell are you? Someone who's trying to save him from making the biggest mistake of his life, Emma said evenly. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. You're the ex Alicia mentioned you once. How dare you show up at my wedding? It's not your wedding anymore, Marcus said quietly, still staring at the medical report in his hands. His mind was racing. There had been odd things over the past year. Unexplained absences, vague mentions of doctor's appointments that Vanessa never wanted to discuss. The time he'd found prescription bottles in her bathroom for conditions she'd never mentioned having. He'd dismissed it all, trusted her when she said it was private. Marcus, don't listen to her, Vanessa said, her voice taking on a pleading tone. She's obviously jealous, trying to ruin our special day. Baby, come back to the altar. We can laugh about this later. Show me your medical records, Marcus said. What? Show me your medical records. Right now. If Emma's lying, prove it. Vanessa's face went through a series of rapid changes. Shock, indignation, fear. I don't have to prove anything to you or to her. This is insane. Emma pulled out her phone. I have more than just that report. I have bank statements showing deposits from insurance settlements. I have testimonies from medical professionals. Vanessa, you've been running this con for 5 years. Did you even plan to tell Marcus? You have no right. Vanessa started, but Marcus cut her off. Is it true? He asked simply. Yes or no? The chapel had erupted into whispers now. Vanessa's mother stood up in the second row, looking horrified. Jordan had come down from the altar and was standing a few feet away, his mouth hanging open. Vanessa looked around at all the faces staring at her. For a moment, Marcus thought she might confess, might break down and explain everything. Instead, she laughed. It was a cold, brittle sound. You know what? Fine. Yes, it's true. And I'm not ashamed of it. Insurance companies are corrupt, bloated institutions that steal from people every day. I'm just taking back what should be ours. What should be yours and mine, Marcus. We could have lived so well with that money. Marcus felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. Vanessa! Oh, don't look at me like that, she snapped. You never questioned where the money for this wedding came from, did you? The down payment on the house we were going to buy. You were happy to reap the benefits. I thought you'd been saving, Marcus said weakly. Saving? Vanessa laughed again. On an event planner's salary? Marcus, you're brilliant with computers, but you're an idiot about people. You never even asked the right questions. Emma stepped forward. Marcus, there's more. The reason I came today isn't just about the fraud. The medical report I showed you, the factitious disorder diagnosis, it means Vanessa has been making herself sick on purpose. Taking medications she doesn't need, inducing symptoms. The psychologist who evaluated her noted signs of Munchausen syndrome. She gets attention from being sick, from being the victim. That's not. Vanessa started, but her voice lacked conviction. The pattern started years before you met Marcus, Emma continued, her journalist training clearly on display as she laid out the facts dispassionately. But it escalated after you two got together. The hospital visits, the mysterious ailments that doctors could never quite diagnose. Marcus. She was manipulating you from the beginning. Marcus thought about all the times Vanessa had canceled plans because she wasn't feeling well. The weekend she'd spent in the hospital for tests that she'd said came back inconclusive. The way she'd sometimes talk about her health struggles with an odd enthusiasm that he'd mistaken for bravery. He'd thought he was supporting a partner through difficult times. He'd been enabling an illness he hadn't even known existed. Why? Marcus asked, looking at Vanessa. Why me? Why any of this? Vanessa's expression hardened. Because you were easy. You're a good guy, Marcus. You don't ask too many questions. You trust people. And you make good money. You were the perfect mark. The words hit him like physical blows. The perfect mark. Their entire relationship had been a con. I think you should leave, Marcus said quietly. Oh, I'm leaving, Vanessa said, gathering up her dress. But you're going to regret this. That house we were buying? My name's on the contract too. The joint bank account? I hope you didn't think I wouldn't drain it. Actually, Emma interjected. You might want to reconsider. I've already sent my research to the FBI's insurance fraud division. They'll be opening an investigation within the week. If I were you, I'd get a very good lawyer. Vanessa's face went pale. For the first time, she looked truly scared. Without another word, she turned and fled down the aisle, her bridesmaids hurrying after her in confusion. The chapel remained silent for a long moment after she'd gone. Then Marcus's mother started crying. Really crying this time, and his father stood up to embrace her. Guests began talking in hushed, shocked tones. Jordan approached and put a hand on Marcus's shoulder. Well, Jordan said, that's definitely going to be a story for the grandkids. Marcus couldn't even muster a laugh. He turned to Emma, who was watching him with those familiar brown eyes that had once looked at him with love. Thank you, he said. I don't know how to. I mean, if you hadn't come. I know, Emma said softly. And I almost didn't. After everything that happened between us, part of me wanted to just let you make your own mistakes. But Alicia called me, and when I looked into Vanessa and saw what she was doing, she shrugged. I couldn't let that happen to you, no matter what went wrong with us. Marcus remembered why they'd broken up. The argument that had spiraled out of control. He'd wanted to move to Seattle for a job opportunity. She'd wanted to stay in Boston to be near her family. Neither of them had been willing to compromise. They'd said terrible things to each other, things designed to hurt. And then Emma had left, and Marcus had been too proud and too hurt to reach out. I'm sorry, Marcus said, for how things ended, for what I said that last night. Emma smiled sadly. I'm sorry too. We were both young and stupid. But Marcus, that's not why I'm really here. She reached into her clutch again and pulled out another piece of paper. This one was older, more worn, as if it had been folded and unfolded many times. I need to tell you something, Emma said. Something I should have told you 3 years ago. Marcus took the paper. It was a letter, written in Emma's handwriting, dated just 2 days after their breakup. Dear Marcus, he read aloud. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from right now, but I can't leave things the way they are. I've been offered a fellowship for investigative journalism. It's in London, for 2 years. I found out the same week we had our fight about Seattle, and I didn't tell you because I was scared. Scared you'd think I was abandoning you. Scared you'd be angry that I was choosing my career over us. But the truth is, I was going to turn it down. I was going to stay in Boston and figure out something local because I couldn't imagine my life without you. Then we had that awful fight and you said I was holding you back from your dreams, and I thought maybe you were right. Maybe we were holding each other back. So I took the fellowship. I'm leaving next week. I'm writing this because I want you to know, it wasn't that I didn't love you enough to compromise. I loved you so much that I was willing to give up my dream. But after what you said, I realized that if we stayed together like that, you'd resent me eventually. Or I'd resent you. And I couldn't bear that. So I'm letting you go. I hope Seattle is everything you want it to be. I hope you find someone who makes you happy. And I hope someday you can forgive me for not being brave enough to tell you all this to your face. Love always, Emma. Marcus looked up from the letter, his vision blurry. You never sent this. I couldn't. By the time I'd worked up the courage, you'd already blocked my number. Blocked me on social media. I asked Dave to give it to you, but he said you didn't want to hear from me. That you were moving on. Emma's voice cracked slightly. So I kept it. Reminded myself why I'd made the choice I made. London, Marcus said numbly. You went to London. For 2 years. Came back about 8 months ago and started working at the Boston Globe. That's how I stumbled across Vanessa's name in the fraud investigation. Emma laughed softly. The universe has a weird sense of humor. Marcus looked around the chapel. At the wilting roses decorating the pews. At the guests who were still whispering and staring. At Jordan, who was awkwardly trying to talk to the violinist. At his family huddled together in shock. Then he looked back at Emma. I never went to Seattle, he said. Emma blinked. What? After we broke up, I couldn't face it. Every time I thought about Seattle, all I could think about was how I was supposed to be starting this new adventure, and you wouldn't be there. So I turned down the job. Stayed in Boston. Told myself I was fine. He laughed bitterly. Guess we were both cowards. Marcus. I met Vanessa 6 months later at a tech conference. She was organizing it. She was beautiful and confident, and she didn't know anything about my past. And that felt like a relief. I didn't have to be the guy who'd lost Emma. I could just be whoever I wanted to be. He shook his head. Turns out I was just the guy who got scammed. Emma reached out and took his hand. Her touch was familiar, like coming home after a long journey. You're not defined by this, she said firmly. Or by us. Or by any of it. You're Marcus Delacroix, you're brilliant, you're kind, and you deserve better than what happened today. What I deserved was you, Marcus said. 3 years ago, I deserved you, and I was too stubborn and too scared to fight for us. We both were. They stood there in the middle of the aisle, hands clasped, while around them the wedding that wasn't going to happen slowly dissolved into chaos. Caterers needed to be told. Guests needed explanations. The venue needed to be dealt with. There were 1,000 practical concerns. But in that moment, none of it mattered. Emma, Marcus said slowly, I know this is insane. I know we have years of stuff to work through. I know one dramatic rescue at a wedding doesn't fix everything that went wrong between us. But you want to try, Emma finished. So do I. Really? She smiled. That real smile he remembered. The one that lit up her whole face. Really? But Marcus, let's take it slow this time. Maybe start with coffee instead of wedding vows. Marcus laughed, actually laughed. For the first time that day. Coffee sounds perfect. From the second row, Marcus's mother called out, Does this mean we still get to party? Because I've been looking forward to that open bar. The tension broke. Several guests laughed. Jordan raised his hands and announced, Reception's still on, people. Different reason to celebrate. But we're celebrating. As the crowd began to disperse, talking and laughing now instead of whispering in shock, Marcus and Emma walked together toward the exit. The afternoon sun was still shining through the stained glass, painting them in blues and reds and golds. You know, Marcus said as they stepped outside into the fresh air. In a really twisted way, I'm almost grateful to Vanessa. If she'd been legit, I'd be married right now to the wrong person. I'd have missed my chance. Your chance at what? At getting it right this time. With you. Emma squeezed his hand. One coffee at a time, remember? One coffee at a time, Marcus agreed. Behind them, they could hear Jordan trying to explain the situation to confused relatives. Ahead of them, the city stretched out, full of possibilities. 3 years ago, they'd said goodbye in anger and pain, convinced they were doing the right thing by letting each other go. Today, they'd been given the rarest of gifts, a second chance they'd never expected. Marcus didn't know if it would work out. He didn't know if they could rebuild what they'd lost or if too much time had passed and too much had changed. But as they walked away from the church together, Emma's hand warm in his, he knew one thing for certain. He was going to try. And this time, he wasn't going to be afraid of the truth. Whatever happened next, they'd face it honestly. Together. That was more than he could say for the wedding that didn't happen. And somehow, that felt like the best possible outcome.